In this video, I am going to discuss about pattern design and allowance. So, there are different types of pattern design and allowances which we have to follow. The first type of allowance is shrinkage allowance. The shrinkage allowance is classified into liquid shrinkage and solid shrinkage, where the liquid shrinkage will happen when your liquid material is being converted to solid. So, there will be a reduction in size due to this liquid contraction. So, the volumetric size of the specimen will be shrinked. So, this type of process is called liquid shrinkage, and the solid shrinkage will happen whenever your solid material is brought to the room temperature. So, that type of shrinkage is called as solid shrinkage. So, these two shrinkages will happen during the casting process. So, to avoid this shrinkage, we have to additionally give some allowance during the pattern design. So, that is the design we have to consider while designing the pattern. So, in order to avoid this, you know that risers can be used, where the risers will supply additional amount of material during solidification. So, due to the reduction in volumetric size, the liquid material from the riser will flow into the molding cavity and occupies the space wherever there is a shrinkage. So, for this process, the riser should be solidified lately when compared to that of the mold cavity. So, while you have to consider these types of allowances while designing the pattern. The next type is draft or taper allowance. So, always whenever you have a vertical design, the taper allowance has to be given. So, there will be a contraction whenever you have a straight vertical planes. So, instead of directly having a vertical surface, you can incline the surface similar to the second picture. So, the pattern can be having a draft or taper allowance, so that this will avoid the casting defects. So, it will also ensure the easy removal of pattern after you have created the molding core. Whenever you have the straight vertical type of pattern design, during the removal process you may get cracked or the sharp corners may get broken. So, this is why we prefer draft or taper allowance. The next one is machining or finish allowance. As I informed earlier in my videos, the casting will have defects while manufacturing. So, additional process is required to bring back the casted component to the required size and to achieve the dimensional quality. So, machining is one of the process where these types of dimensional quality can be achieved in your casted component. So, while designing the pattern, you have to give certain allowances, because after machining you will be reducing the size. So, those things has to be precautionally, it has to be taken into account while designing the pattern. And the next one is distortion or camber allowance. So, in this case, if you have any shapes like I, V, U, L, T, so you can see these types of distortion or camber allowance during the solidification. So, what happens here is your material will try to contract at the closed end. So, which makes your vertical legs to slightly incline. So, whatever may be the shape, due to the shrinkage, so these types of distortion or camber allowance will happen. So, while designing the pattern, what shall be included is those legs can be designed which with slightly converged inwards, so that during solidification this distortion and camber, when it is getting contracted, it will come to exactly vertical position. So, the pattern has to be slightly inclined, these legs has to be slightly inclined while designing the pattern, so that during solidification once again it comes back to straight vertical surface. Thus you can avoid this distortion or camber allowance, camber. So the addition of these types of allowance is called distortion or camber allowance. And the final thing is wrapping allowance. So after you place your pattern inside the mold, after setting it up, you have to remove the pattern and then only you can complete the mold cavity. While removing the pattern, you will disturb the molding sand which is present around the pattern. So this makes to a small enlargement of molding cavity. So the same shape will be replicated in your casting product. So these types of allowances has to be replicated in your pattern, so that during removal of your pattern, even though your molding sand is being slightly enlarged in its shape to create the molding cavity, it should not be much affected on your casting dimensions. So according to that, the wrapping allowance has to be made in your pattern. So these are all the different types of allowances which you have to ensure while designing the pattern. Now the pattern design. So in your pattern design, you can see these pictures. Always you have to avoid the sharp corners. The sharp corners may increase the stress concentration. So the first picture where it shows the region of stress concentration and sharp corners has to be avoided. And the second picture tells you about there should not be any abrupt size reduction. The reduction of size should be smooth. So comparative to those two pictures, you can see the first picture has a abrupt change in size, but the second picture, the reduction in size is smooth. So the second picture, the design of pattern is comparatively good. Here you can see that the design of the section is not of uniform thickness. Okay, so the correct one is the entire pattern should have a uniform thickness. So according to that only you should design your pattern. Maybe later on you can do some additional secondary processing to bring back to required shape and size. And finally, I've told you to avoid all the shapes like U, V, L, T, because it may get distortion or camber. The vertical legs may get tilted up during solidification. Maybe you can avoid these things while designing the pattern, but for better design, we shall avoid these types of shapes during pattern design. So these are the aspects regarding your pattern design and allowances. Thank you.